all up bright and early this morning, ready to go. Yeah. She's wearing the little nugget sweater that I made her. Yeah, this is a 6 to 12 month size. It's a bit big on her at the moment, but yeah. Cuff the sleeves. But it's nice and long, so it'll be warm for the journey to the airport and on the plane.
Layla. You should have shaved from my right. I'm hungry, monsieur.
C'est long, pas du tout, c'est motion, l'autre monsieur, motion. Il a qu'un mot avec lui. Ah, c'est ça. She thinks she's on a bouncer. Oh, look up. You bouncy. You bouncy. She hold it. She smells like it. She smells like it.
Do I look different?
My jersey.
I look a little bit different than the new one. No.
Take it off.
It's like I look up Manson. My t-shirt.
Guys, so today is Thursday the 14th of September and yeah, we're in Vegas. We got here yesterday, all went well. Layla did really well on the flight actually, and yeah, so that went great. We weren't sure how she was going to handle the time difference, and turns out not particularly great. It's like a 3-hour time difference between New York and Vegas, and yeah, so yesterday when it got to what would have been her normal bedtime in New York, we were out, so I was hoping she'd just have a nap and then maybe be okay for a couple more hours before we got home, and then put her down for bed at a sort of normal bedtime for her local time wise. Yeah, no, didn't go down too well. She had the nap, but then she was so grumpy afterwards. She was so upset because obviously she would normally still be asleep, and yeah, so we came home, sort of kept her awake for a little bit longer to make sure she'd sleep properly, and then yeah, she went down early, and we stayed in for the rest of the evening, which was fine. It was okay. Perry and I were both tired, and we actually both ended up going to bed at what would have been a normalish time for us back home, so it was early here. So yeah, I think we were in bed by around 9 PM local time here, so it's like 8:39 local time, yeah. And yeah, and then Layla woke up at 3:30 this morning, local time, ready to start her day, because 3:30 here is 6:30 in New York, and that's pretty usual for her. So that was fun. I've been awake since 6:30 and it is now 8:10. So we've already had 5 hours of our day. Spent mostly in our room, not wanting to wake anyone up. Layla's now with my parents. Perry's having a shower. I've got to go feed her lunch in a minute. It's a bit ridiculous. It's 8 AM and I have to give her lunch. So we will see what ends up happening today. I'm not entirely sure. Knitting wise, I don't have it here with me, it's in the other room, but I knit a tiny little pair of, I say pair, half of a pair of baby socks, like so one sock on the plane yesterday. I got to the toe decreases before we landed and then finished it off last night. And I used the Grand Central sock pattern, so that'll be fun. And they look really cute on baby socks as well. Right, so I just wanted to catch up really quickly with you guys, let you know what was happening, and yeah.
To the base. chocolate and sponge cake. He'd be ready for it every day. Just leave it, you know, big one.
Post-lunch, rolling around. Yeah. Yeah. Burning off some of that extra energy. Yeah. You're such a good girl. You did so well at lunch. Uh-huh. Yeah. Just got a few more hours to kill before we head to the airport. Hopefully she does alright on the flight home. Hey guys, so it is now Saturday night. What is the date even? Saturday 16th, I want to say. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's the 16th. Yes, Saturday 16th of September. And yeah, so it's in the evening. I'm back home finally. We had a great time in Vegas. I really didn't talk that much on the vlogs, on the video that I filmed whilst we were in Vegas, just because, like I've mentioned before, I feel awkward doing it when I'm with other people. But it's, like I said, Saturday night now. It's not even that late. I think it's only like 9 o'clock, or yeah, well, okay, no, 10 to 10, later than I thought. But Perry went to bed about an hour ago. He's not feeling well. I think he's picked up a cold or something whilst we were traveling, so he's not been feeling particularly great today. But we had a pretty good time, all things taken into account. So I thought I would just do a really brief rundown of what we got up to, just in case it's not particularly clear in the video or something like that. But we got there, our flight out was great. It was a daytime flight. Layla did amazing. She wasn't bothered by the change in like ear pressure, you know, when your ears go funny when you take off and land. Was not bothered at all. And it was just a bit difficult keeping her entertained and not being able to put her down, because obviously she doesn't have her own seat, so, and you can't really, I don't really want to put her on the floor of the airplane, which isn't great. But we did have like extra legroom seats, which was really nice. And this wasn't, this was quite a small plane, so they didn't have any of those like bassinets for babies and stuff, so we had nowhere else to put her other than on our laps or in our chair if we were stood up. But it was actually a shorter flight than I'd expected. It was about 4.5 hours total, 4.5, 5-ish hours. But it was alright actually, it wasn't too bad. And the only times that she cried were when she was tired or hungry, so, you know, perfectly understandable reasons. The flight went fine. We got there, my parents came and met us at the airport. It was really lovely. My dad finally got to meet Layla, so that was really nice. And I posted a bunch of pictures as well on our family Instagram account, which is Philip Family Life. And yeah, so that was really fun. And yeah, so that first evening we didn't really get up to much, to be honest. I can't actually remember what we did now. We did go to I think we went to the Venetian, wandered around there for a little bit, and then it's actually a 3-hour time difference. I didn't quite realize it was that much. For some reason I had it in my head that it was only 2, but it's a 3-hour time difference, which meant that by the time we got to about 4 o'clock, Layla was like, right, bedtime, because she goes to sleep at 7. So it got to about 4 o'clock and she was ready for bed. She had a quick nap in the stroller whilst we were still out, but then she was just really confused because we were still out. She didn't know what was going on. She woke up after half an hour and she was just really tired, wanting to be asleep and not quite understanding what was going on. So we ended up going home and eventually got down a bit later than usual for bed. So yeah, so then we just stayed in that night. Perry and I were both pretty tired and didn't really do much else. The next morning Layla woke up bright and early at 3:30 a.m. ready to start her day, because that's 6:30 back home and not unheard of for her to wake up and start her day at 6:30. So that was fun. I was able to leave her for about 45 minutes before she really started grumbling that she was hungry. So I got up and I fed her. So she ended up having her morning milk and breakfast and her morning nap before anyone else woke up. So by the time we were up having our breakfast, she was ready for lunch. So it gives you a bit of an idea of how our trip went. And then again by around 4 o'clock-ish she was ready for bed. And so we were ready for it this time. So we went home and put her down. And then we wanted to go for dinner. Well, my cousin, who was also on this trip with us, he wanted to take us out for dinner somewhere. So I thought, okay, well, I'll put her down for bed and we'll let her sleep for about an hour, and then I'll get her up and we can go out for dinner, and then hopefully we'll have a 2.5 hour window, but she'll be okay, and then we'll come home and she can go down and you know, sleep till morning. I think she was probably in quite a deep sleep when I woke her, and so she was a bit disorientated again, kind of wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then I had to bundle her into a car seat to take her out to dinner. It's the first time we have ever done this. I've never, once she's gone down to sleep for bed at night, I have never gotten her up again to go somewhere or do something else. Like, I was just like, nope, she's asleep, that's it, I'm leaving her. So this is the first time that we have like intentionally woken her up from sleep. And to be honest, like, we've never done it before, and you know, there may be occasions in the future where we have to do something like that for whatever reason, and so it was just more of an experiment to see how it would go. Not the wisest decision, I will have to say. I will say that right now. It wasn't horrendous, let's be honest. Like, she wasn't the worst for it, but she was definitely unsure what was going on, not particularly happy about it. I wouldn't recommend doing that. And yeah, it wasn't, personally I would have just stayed home and not gone out for dinner. But I also, you know, we were there to celebrate my mum's birthday, and I didn't want to just be having gone all the way to Vegas to just stay in the apartment we were renting and not do anything. So we thought we'd give it a go. And I mean, during the day we had a great time. We went out and saw stuff and went to a couple of the hotels and just wandered around a bit, and that was fine. But this was in the evening, and yeah, like I said, it was okay. She was a bit teary, a bit grumbly, a bit grumpy, but it was alright. And in the end we got home, she got to bed at a reasonable time actually. It wasn't that much later. I think she was asleep by like 8, before 8 even. It was like 7:45 she was asleep, and she slept through till morning. She slept through to 4:30. 4:45 actually, which was better than the day before. So yeah, so that wasn't too bad. And then yesterday went pretty well as well. We didn't actually do a whole ton yesterday. We had to check out of our room by 12:30, and Layla actually slept for 2 hours, had her 2-hour lunch nap in our room. And yeah, so that went really well. And then woke her up, and we'd all finished packing to check out by then. We checked out, we stayed in the hotel, and sort of used the pool. Layla went for her first swim, which was really, really lovely. My parents took her for her first swim. Neither me nor Perry had taken our swimsuits. Just sort of hung out at the hotel. We went out for lunch. We ended up going to Hooters, which was the closest place we could walk to, which wasn't going to be too long of a walk in the sun. It was really quite hot. It was in the high 90s whilst we were in Vegas. And in centigrade, that's like high 30s. And but yeah, it was fine. The food was okay. And Layla sat in her high chair and was like eating lettuce and bread. I mean, I say eating, more like just like tasting, as it were, putting it in her mouth, playing with it, throwing it on the floor. I was surprised she did really well there as well, because it was really loud and quite overwhelming for a little baby, but she did really well. And yeah, we got back to the hotel, and again around 4:30 she was like bedtime, but it was a bit too early for us still to go to the airport, so made a little makeshift bed for Layla, found a dark quiet corner in the lobby area, pushed a couple of armchairs together and sort of fashioned a little bed for her in the corner, put on her white noise. We use white noise for Layla during bedtime and naps, and even in the stroller we'll put it on under the cover, and it just helps to block out any sort of background noises and other things going on, and it just helps her sleep better. And actually now Perry and I are so used to it, we sleep a lot better with the white noise on at night than without it, which is quite funny. So yeah, I put that on. She slept for a good two and a half hours, and it was getting close to the time that we were going to have to wake her up anyway to go to the airport, but she was starting to stir. I guess she'd come into like a light sleep, and so she was starting to stir, so I turned the white noise off and she just woke up herself, which was a much better way of doing it. We learned our lesson this way. She was much happier as a result. There was like no tears. She was perfectly happy. Got to the airport. My parents had actually gone ahead of us because their flight was slightly earlier, and we have TSA pre-check and my parents didn't, so we just didn't want them to get stuck in security in case it was long or busy or anything like that. And we met back up with them at the airport. They were off to Boston and we came back home. The overnight flight actually wasn't half as bad as I'd expected. I was dreading the overnight flight, especially after how the night before had gone with having woken up later from her sleep and stuff like that. But the flight went really well. She was asleep before we even took off, slept through the whole takeoff and all like the announcements and stuff that comes on. There was a couple of times when her eyes opened, but she just went straight back to sleep. And she slept for over 2.5 hours whilst I held her. And then she was up for a little bit, and then she slept for another hour before we landed, and it was like during the descent that she started waking up. It didn't seem like the change in pressures didn't seem to affect her ears that much. I think that it did a little bit on the landing, because she woke up really suddenly from her sleep and she was like doing that to her ears quite a bit, but that only lasted for a couple of minutes and then she was fine. And then she fell asleep in the taxi on the way home, like almost instantly, and she is very difficult to, she doesn't sleep in the car very easily. It's not very typical. She must have just been very tired, because I figured it out in the end. She ended up having only about half the amount of sleep she normally has overnight. So overnight she tends to sleep between 11 to 12 hours, and she only had like 6.5 hours sleep last night total. So so she was just very tired. But in that small space of time that she was awake on the plane, she had a dirty nappy, so I had to go change her nappy. And if you've ever changed a baby's nappy in those airplane toilets, it is not easy. The little changing table that pulls down is not that big, and Layla seems to have developed a fear of public changing tables, like changing tables in public toilets. I don't know what it is about them. Like, she sees one, she sees like me putting her close to one, me or Perry, whoever's changing her. Like, she sees herself approaching a changing table in a public toilet. She starts screaming like someone's like poking her with a needle or something. It is horrendous, the type of screaming she does. She sounds like she's in genuine pain. Well, obviously she's not. Like, this is before she's even like touched a changing table. So there's that to contend with, screaming like inconsolable child. And then for some reason she was extra squirmy last night, and because she'd done a poo, she managed to get her leg, like she like slap her leg right into the middle of it all, and then knock the wipes off the table and sort of rolled over, and then decided to take a bath in her own pee. So that was exciting. That was so much fun at 2 AM to deal with. Finally got her clean, into a clean nappy, and took her clothes off, and had to took her back to our seat and handed off a naked baby to Perry, and he was just like, what happened? Oh, so that wasn't enjoyable. I mean, I always pack spare clothes for her anyway, just in case something like this happens. It never has until now, but I'm glad I did have spare clothes for her. And surprisingly, I don't know how, but in all of this I managed to avoid getting any pee or poo on myself, so I call that a small win. Anyway, yeah, so anyway, I pretty much held her the whole time on the flight back. I think there was like a window of 20 minutes when Perry held her, but he managed to sleep a little bit, not amazingly, but well, more than I did, because I was having to hold her. And just by the nature of the way the seats were and how I had to hold her to sleep, my arms were basically dead by the time we landed. My wrists were so sore today. They were just so like throbbing pain. If you don't know, I actually I've broken both of my wrists in the past. One of my left wrist I've broken twice, and my right wrist once. So I do have injuries, like prior injuries to my wrists as well. So today's been really difficult. Like, every time I've gone to pick Layla up, I generally, it's really painful. So Perry's had to do a lot of the Layla wrangling today, and actually it was great because I got to sleep a good few hours in the morning once we got home, and Perry looked after Layla, and then sort of once I woke up we sort of tag teamed the rest of the afternoon. He, like I said, he's not been feeling well. I think he caught something, so he's been a bit there for the day as well, which is totally understandable. So he went to bed early, and Layla went to bed early. She slept a lot more during the day today than she usually does, and she still went to bed early as well, so I'm hoping she'll sleep well tonight, and then tomorrow she'll be nice and fresh. Mostly unpacked. Actually, we are completely unpacked. I just have a few things left to organise and tidy and put away. My parents get here tomorrow late afternoon, early evening, so hopefully they'll get here before Layla goes to bed. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having them over. I think this is going to be the end of the vlog, to be honest. I'm not going to do any more filming tomorrow, but I will film next week. So from Monday. And yeah, so I thought I would just quickly round out the end of this with a quick review of what I got done knitting wise whilst we were in Vegas. I didn't take much with me knitting wise. I took a few bits of scrap yarn to work on scrappy socks, baby socks for Layla, and I took some yarn to do a baby hat for my nephew, but I never started that one. So I actually got 2 pairs of baby socks done, kind of. I'll explain. So the first pair I did was this one, which I think I showed on the videos at some point. But these are some, get this to focus. Oh, that's way better. So these are the Grand Central sock pattern, which is from the New York Sock Club, and I just did them on a pair of baby socks for Layla. And I really love how this texture looks on in this yarn and on this sock. So the yarn is Shirsty Cat Designs. I think this is a merino nylon blend, and it's the Nightwood colorway. So I really like how the colors pop in this one. This is a great pattern for variegated yarns because it really makes those colors pop. And so yeah, there's that. This is using the same recipe I had posted on Instagram. And then I started a pair of Diagon Alley socks, which is another sock pattern of mine which you can get on Ravelry as well. and if this will focus, I started a pair of Diagon Alley socks, and this is out of some leftovers. Again, I used this yarn in that crochet rainbow blanket for Layla. I've got the pair here, and this is out of yarn by Geektastic Fibers, and this is the colorway Red in My Ledger, which is a Black Widow reference, which is from the Marvel comics. So this is Diagon Alley, which is a Harry Potter inspired design. And I finished one sock yesterday, and I'd gotten the cuff of the second sock done, and I finished the second sock this evening once my wrists were feeling a little bit better. They're still a bit sore, but definitely better than they were this morning. So yeah, that's basically all the knitting I've done since the last time I did the podcast. I think the only other thing I had to show was I finished these DK socks for Layla. So as you can see with the second one, I only needed the little tiny bit at the end of the other colour. So what I could have done was pull out this one, use a bit more of the Maker's Haven yarn to get a bit further along on the foot of this one, and then have the purple for the toe decreases, but they're baby socks. I'm not going to worry about stuff like that. If it was like an adult pair of socks, I probably would have done that, but it's their baby socks, it doesn't matter. I think I still need to weave in the ends on this one, I'm not sure. I have to double check. I thought I did that. But yeah, so I was looking at these socks, and I was looking at all the socks I've knit for Layla so far, and then I picked up this pair, which was the mix and match socks that I did for Layla, and this is out of this is fingering weight yarn as well. When you compare it to this one, you can see the difference in size. It is actually a bit ridiculous. And then I measured the gauge, and this is more of my standard sock gauge. It's about 8 to 8.5 stitches per inch. Around 8 stitches per inch is my usual sock knitting gauge. This one in the stockinette portion is over 9 stitches per inch. It's like 9.25 stitches per inch. I'm not sure what was going on. This was using 2.25mm needles, Chiagu's, and this is the same as I use for all the other socks I've knit for her so far. And the other socks are not this big. This one, maybe it's a combination of the yarn and the needles, I don't know. Or maybe by the time I got to knitting these, I was just feeling very relaxed. But these ones I knit on Knit Pro Zings, which also 2.25mm needles. I switched to those just because they're not as sharp as the Chiagu's, and I've never had any issues with taking sharp needles onto planes, but I really like my Chiagu's and I didn't want them to be taken away from me, and the Knit Pro Zings are much cheaper needles. So I tend to take needles that I don't mind being confiscated, just in case it happens. It's never happened, but there's always a chance that you get that one TSA agent who isn't a fan of knitting needles and decides to take them off you. You can't really argue with them, so I'd rather not take my good quality needles that I don't want to lose with me. But anyway, so yeah, so these come out of more my usual gauge, and this one came out really big, so I don't really understand what happened there. It's fine. They will fit her eventually. It's not a big deal. And yeah, so I now have something along the lines of 7 pairs of socks for Layla, plus a DK weight pair as well. So Layla is well on her way to having a box of socks for herself soon. I think once I get a couple more pairs done, I'll kind of lay them all out and show you guys in a podcast or in a vlog at some point. And I think I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to just finish tidying up a little bit and then head to bed myself. Tomorrow's a new day. Hopefully we will all be feeling a little bit more refreshed. Like I said, I don't think either of us are as afraid, afraid not the right word, we're not as worried about taking an overnight flight with Layla anymore as we had been prior to taking this flight. But definitely wouldn't want to do it again on a plane where we wouldn't be able to have a bassinet, or like, you know, the child bassinet seat option. Just because I feel like if we'd had that option, she probably would have been able to sleep better, because the reason why I feel she woke up was just because she was trying to move around, and obviously I'm holding her, so there's very little moving that she can do to adjust her positioning. And also you know, if there's somewhere that I can put her down to sleep, then I can try and get some sleep as well, which would have been very helpful for me for today. Anyway, one final thing I wanted to show you was I picked up another Starbucks mug. I've been collecting these Starbucks mugs from the You Are Here collection, and I've got them from everywhere that Perry and I have been in the US together so far, so except for 2. Boston, I forgot to pick one up when we went to Boston, so I've asked my mum to pick me up a mug, and if she forgets then I'll order that one online. And I don't have one for Connecticut or New Haven, and so again I might have to order that one online, or see if I can get a friend to get one for me when I have a couple of friends who live in Connecticut, so I might see if someone can get one for me and bring it down to New York when they come next. But I did pick up the Vegas one, so Las Vegas. And yeah, so that's that one. It's red and yellow, very fitting, and it's red on the inside. So yeah, that gets to get added. That's literally the only thing I bought in Vegas. Didn't get time. I know there's a couple of yarn shops around Vegas or near there, but just wasn't on the cards. It wasn't really the focus of why we were going to Vegas, and it's more about spending time with family. It was good. I don't feel like it was really it didn't really feel like a holiday for Perry and I. I'm really glad we did something like this, having gone to somewhere we'd been to before. Vegas wouldn't have been our first choice of somewhere to go for this kind of trip, but it was somewhere my parents wanted to go, and that was really the main point of it, so we were happy to go for that. It was far too short of a trip for the time difference with Layla. I mean, if it was just me and Perry, it wouldn't have been such a big deal, but with Layla, like we were literally only there for 2.5 days. It just wasn't a long enough time to really adjust her timings at all. They were starting to adjust before we left, but by the time we were leaving, but we really would have had to have been there at least a week to really make it worth it with her and the way she was, you know, how slowly she was adapting to the time differences. And in hindsight, I probably should have started adjusting her timings prior to leaving. So we learnt for next time. I mean, going to the UK should be easier because we're going the other way, so rather than her waking up early, she'll probably be sleeping in longer in the mornings and up later at night naturally, so that will be an easier thing to adjust and deal with. And then coming home will be the opposite, but again, when we're home it's a bit different. It's easier to manage stuff like that. So it was a good learning experience. I think if nothing else, that's what this trip was for us. It was a very good learning experience. And I know things with Layla will just get easier as she gets older and she gets more settled, and then it becomes more flexible as well as a result. So you know, we're not put off traveling with her by any stretch. It was just an interesting and exhausting experience, and we've definitely learned a lot from it, and a lot of things we would do differently next time, and a lot of things that we would do the same. So yeah, and like I said, I'm gonna sign off now, and I will hopefully get this edited and uploaded at some point tomorrow. And yeah, so I hope you'll enjoy it. It's not a lot of knitting content in this vlog. It's very much a family vlog this part of the week, but I hope that you will enjoy it, and I will be back with you guys next week with another vlog. It will probably be more family orientated because my parents are here and we're going to be going out and about and doing some touristy stuff, and I'm not entirely sure how much knitting time I'm going to have, but we will see. So take care, have a lovely week, and I will be back with you guys soon. All right, bye.